Thank you, recording in progress, lady. Hello, everybody. This is Oakwalker, and I'm here with my best friend, Stronghorse, and we are the podcast called Earth Medicine for the Soul. We've been talking a lot lately about accountability and about shadow work and how those two things sort of go together. So I'm going to let Frank sort of open this up because he's really good about doing the lead-in stuff and directing us where we should go next. There you go.
Okay, well, we and on the last one we recorded, we were um, relating to everyone your story about the ceremony you did where you were trying to get your universal name,
Yeah.
and you encountered this ugly beast that once you freed it, it was like you'd gained freedom,
Uh-huh.
It was sort of so it became an ally. So obviously it's a good story that illustrates what happens when you face your fears,
Yeah.
and allow then let the monster fade away and then see what's behind it, because it usually opens up to something else that you've been avoiding or you can't access or blah blah
Yeah.
blah. I mean,
You hear people
I can.
talking about the gemstone that they found underneath the pile of shit. And, it comes
Hmm.
across in a lot of different ways. I opened a room and there was nothing in there but dust and this jewel, like things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that. I mean, if there's one thing about shamanism, it definitely challenges you to face your fears. I mean, it's there's no there's no gray area there. In fact, in my path, the very first ceremony is called Night on the Mountain of Fear, and
Uh-huh.
we put people out in the desert in medicine wheels and give them instructions, and they have to stay out there and stay awake all night and do all this stuff, and there's been times I have people that have walked out about 50 feet and sat down, from the campsite. I'm like, no, no, no. This isn't Night on the Veranda affair. This
Yeah.
is Night on the Mountain affair, No, no, we ain't go out there. You want us to go out there? Yeah, it's called facing your fears. That's, when people are so freaked out by nature, they just think, oh my God, I go out there, I'm going to get bit by a snake. I'm going to get somebody's going to eat me. I mean, I'm going to get attacked by a coyote. I mean, who knows, so and it's a great ceremony. It just was one of
Hmm.
the best ceremonies I ever did, but so facing that fear for me, I was more interested in finding out what's behind it.
Hmm.
What's the gift. And if you approach it from that standpoint, then you're able to take that fear and then whatever that is causing you the fear to turn it to an ally.
Yes. But you have to do
And
that
then
once before you can look forward to the thing that's behind it. I mean,
exactly
there's a fear of facing your fear. And
right.
once you overcome that, what I found was, well, I, I don't want to put this tritely, but I was a lot more fearless. And so, yeah. So I wasn't afraid to fail anymore after that. You were asking me, what happened? What was the result of that? And it, and what happened was I found that I could be more honest with others and myself by no longer being afraid to get it wrong.
Right.
If and I and that's
Oh,
that incident really increased my ability to go ahead and take the risk of getting it wrong so that I could get it right.
I had a very similar sort of situation, but on in a kind of different context. I got to a point where, things were happening to me that were so atrocious and so bad and so hurtful that I just, at some point in time, I don't know when, I can't remember when, but I just decided that, I'm just not going to pay attention to it anymore. You know, I'm just not going to, I'm not going to give it any of my energy or any of my attention or whatever. and it began to fade away, because there was no place for it to land on me anymore,
Right.
and
It
so
didn't have a
so
hook.
the instances, yeah, so the instances started decreasing, and as they decreased, more of my authenticity started coming out
Hmm.
because I wasn't carrying my shield to defend myself any longer. I was carrying a shield that says, check it out. This is my power symbols on here. you know, and as a sun dancer, I can claim that,
Hmm.
because that's every Sundance I make a different shield, and those shields would be representative of my dream or
Hmm.
what I was dancing for, or these. So
Yeah.
so I turned my shields away from a defensive position of needing to defend myself all the time to one of allies and power symbols that said this is who I am, this is what I do,
Hmm.
take it or leave it, man.
Yeah.
So I just them as that on fits, and you have to have that flow that you're talking about for that authentic self to kind of come out.
Hmm. Yeah, I do. I do agree. And the
So
more,
how did that flow? What did it look like for you after that ceremony?
well, so my closest friends, I found that it was quite possible just to bring that spirit forth so that I could say, you want to see it? You want to see this? Look, and it would come right out of my eyes, and that people would go, "Oh, I do see that there's a change in you. Um, you're walking through the world with a more a surer step, a more definite step." And I wasn't so frightened of everybody and everything anymore. And as a result of that, I found myself feeling less attacked. And the less attacked I feel, the less attack actually happens. You
Right.
start to move in a circle of acceptance, even though I said I would never seek acceptance again. Um, but you find yourself
It
in this,
happened anyway.
it happened anyway, right? And yeah. And so all of that's all related. And that's not the only experience I had with my darker side, but it was one of the big ones that really cracked me open in the best possible way.
So let me ask you a question. After that, did you become more self-aware of that you are a spirit inhabiting a physical body?
I was already pretty comfortable with that.
Were you?
Yeah, because that was one of my early transitional realizations. And when we take that, uh, one of the first things I learned how to do was run my energies. And when we take our consciousness and bring that consciousness down from our head, literally watching ourselves crawl down into our heart. And in my heart, there's that space that you just described as that little cocoon of God's authenticity in there, and it's a space in here where I embody that. And then that is the thing, when I combine with that thing, that core self, I used to call it, that's the thing that runs down out my root chakra, if you want to use chakras, and into the earth, that's where my grounding cord would go down into the earth. It would anchor itself in the center of the earth. And I used to do this every day. I still do it a lot, but it's changed over time because I'm much more familiar with the processes. Now it takes less time. And I
Right.
just have to spill my coffee and go, thank you, and it's kind of done now. But it took years and years of just grounding myself intentionally every day, and then coming back up and running that grounding cord back up and out so that I also attached it to that star energy or that celestial energy. That made me one of the very important conduits of the uh, the creator energy and anchoring it into the earth. So I became one of the rays of light. I became myself one of those rays of light that actually bring that celestial down into the earth. And that's a kind of a practice that, geez, I don't know how to describe it. It makes you feel like you're not of the earth anymore, but you're
Hmm.
still helping.
Well, I guess let me reframe it in my question in a different context.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
because I've had that same sort of knowing,
Yeah.
but the time when it really came home for me one time is I was actually sitting in Central Market in Austin having lunch
Mhm.
and reading a newspaper, and all of a sudden I jerked, and I was like, "What's?" I was like, "What's going on?" And I wheeled around and I looked, and there was this woman who was checking out at the cashier, in the line, and I was staring at her, and I thought, what am I staring at that person for? And I had to completely do a 180 degree, man. I had to turn around like that, to find this, to look. And I thought, what is going on? Because I was like reading a newspaper and having my lunch, and all of a sudden I'm jerked up
Uh-huh.
and flipped around and looking at this person. And I thought, what is going on? Then I stopped and turned around. I thought, why am I? And I started look, and the closer I looked, the more sudden I realized it was a woman I had dated for 8 years and hadn't seen in about 30. And, but my spirit recognized her,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, I completely had my back turned, and my spirit went, "Hey, look at that," and it just almost it took me over, and it was like I was sort of at the effect of my spirit, and it really blew my mind, because I mean I could go back to some other situations where that happened, but not as predominantly as that moment. It was like it was clearly a completely different thing than this physical body,
Mhm.
and it was real, and it was taking me somewhere,
Yeah.
instead of me saying, well, let's get with the spirit and I'm going to take you somewhere. It took me
Mhm.
somewhere, which
Yeah.
really kind of boggled my mind, and I guess maybe your story about the time you're doing your Tai Chi,
Mhm.
and you felt the energy and then you went, oh, well,
Yeah.
maybe there is something here,
Yeah.
So is that
Something's
similar
happening.
kind of realization?
Yeah. Just even this is an interesting, totally a side note, but I was at work, I work with all those troubled teenage boys. And I was just going from one task to another. And I didn't have anybody with me. I was just walking from point A to point B. And but to get there, I had to walk through this small field, and there was just about a dozen large dragonflies, and they were just playing around doing their dragonfly thing. And I realized that I could feel every one of them, you know, and I could feel even without looking at them that um, I knew where they were after they had moved, and I could pick them all out. And I even felt like going even weirder that I knew what they were going to do, right? And so I wasn't surprised by any of this stuff. And it wasn't like they were talking to me going, "Hey, Oakwalker, how you doing?" I mean, nothing like that. They were just doing their thing. But I felt like I was real connected with them. And I started wondering about that because I don't feel connected like that with people anymore. And I'm not sure I actually ever have. And I was wondering if this wasn't because as humans, we're not paying attention. Um,
I think it goes back to knowing.
uh-huh.
I think it goes back to
It's
knowing,
it,
and
part of that
knowing knows
experience.
itself, knowing knows itself, and knowing knows other knowing, and that's
Right?
which is exactly what happened with me with my spirit going, I know who that is. Me going,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, my God, what am I being jerked around for? So
Yeah.
there's, I mean, it's a world that we have just
Mm.
barely touched into, I mean, and it's got to be the way that mankind goes. I mean, it simply we're gonna have to get reconnected into that knowing aspect of ourself
Yeah.
to know the creator. And my term for the creator as I was writing is I refer to it as an all-knowing being
Uh-huh.
as opposed to an all-knowledgeable being.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a whole different. That's a because knowing is unending.
Yeah.
There's not there's no beginning or end. It just is.
Right. And it's also that
It's
when we
just
say interconnected, we always think of connections like strings and stuff, but think of it as you're just in a pond or an amorphous pile of dough, and that's connection. You're connected to that, and that's connected to everything. And it's a field or uh, the cloud of energy that we're all always part of. And maybe
right.
that's what the creator actually is. Is that the creator? Is that big pile of dough? It's constantly
No,
being.
yeah, no, I know, no, absolutely, and it's in a constantly evolving state of trying to know itself,
Yes. Yeah.
and there's no
So
end to
there's
that.
there's
There doesn't need
currents and
to be
there's
an end.
yeah, it's got currents
It's
and
just
facets and strings and everything you can imagine in there.
fractals.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If we could, as we, it was, if we're fractals of the creator, those reflections are constantly going back into the knowing,
Hmm.
and like a tapestry, that's all melding together and swimming
Yeah.
together and creating a whole nother adventure and a whole nother dimension within a whole nother world, and so
Right.
it's fascinating, it just keeps going, there's
Yeah.
no in our in our ego mind concentric need to obtain knowledge and then tell everybody how you like me now. you
because
know
because I'm not the same as I was just when I started that sentence.
we've lost touch with that. It's just we're
Mhm.
so busy that I remember somebody one time said to me this and that and this and that, and I said I don't think that's true, and they said, well, how would you know? And I said to myself, well, because that's what I do. I,
it's
I
it's been my
know,
experience.
yeah. And I'm not being self-centered with that. It's just that knowing comes natural to me. It's so easy for me. And that's intimidating to people. It really is, because they know they're wrong. They know that they need knowing also, but they don't know how to get it because our system is not set up to educate them to that
Uh-huh.
reality. Our system's set up to educate them, to give them knowledge, go out there and impress somebody with how much knowledge you got, and they'll pay you, and you can collect all this shit, and then when you die, somebody else will take it and throw it away.
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
Right.
I mean, that's just pretty much it in an eggshell.
Uh-huh.
So this knowing though is just it just I think that's really the key to the authentic self.
Hmm.
It just opens you up to multiple, to your Akashic records, to multiple dimensions, to multiple worlds,
Yeah.
on and on.
On and
And it's
endlessly.
so I love the adventure aspect of that.
Oh, I
I mean,
do
I
too.
really
I do
I mean,
too.
it's just one discovery after the other. And when you go out into the natural world, and that world is respecting and honoring you because you have knowing, the interaction that goes on between you, like you and and dragonflies, or
Hmm.
me and the python, or that I came across down in Mexico.
Yeah.
I used to walk through the Sierra Madres by myself, and just you know I'd get lost and I'd call on the ancestors of that area to help me out, and they would take me and show me where spring was, or where,
Yeah.
where the next trail I need to take was. So,
Yeah.
I just let go and let them show me, and it is so amazing. And the wonder of it all is it's just so
It's
hard it's hard to describe. I mean, it
yeah,
really
but
is.
it's really one of the best feelings,
Uh,
that I've ever had is that when that
I think when you,
connection that you've been working on
yeah,
so hard for so long, and you're working on it very hard, and what you're working on is not working on it anymore.
right. No, right.
you know,
Exactly.
and then when you finally achieve that release, and then it all comes together and is just such a glorious feeling because it's also enhanced with the beauty of that creator light that's coming through the process and everything. Really, I don't know anything better.
No, it's just it's literally palatable.
Hmm.
I mean, you can taste it, feel it, sense it, and it's no longer, you're not relying on somebody else's BS. You're not relying on
Right.
some somebody else's experience or somebody else's interpretation or somebody else's text. You're
Nope.
there, man,
Yeah, it's just
in
you and the
present
universe.
time, knowing, and it's happening, it's unfolding right before you. And it's like I've had friends of mine say, I can't live without the mystery of the creator. I just
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. That's
And
what I
that's kind
tell.
of it.
Yeah, that's what I tell people too. I just, no matter how much, no matter how many ways I've tried to reframe the universe, I can't get the intelligence out of the core of it. You know, it's this is an intelligent universe. And it's the same thing that you're saying is that it's not just the intelligence of the universe, but it's the mystery of the fact that you have an infinite number of variables going on here. And and you science
They
will
all make sense.
they all yeah, and they're all interconnected. They're part of that big dough. And and oh God, see, it's a mystery. But there's just no
Yeah,
way to get the creator out of the bottom of it.
yeah. I mean, it's just it's like, and I think circling back to our last session, we were talking about loneliness. I think probably everybody that's been on any kind of spiritual path initially experiences a lot of loneliness because you change so much. The people that are used to you under a certain context don't like the fact that you don't aren't in that same context anymore, And
Yeah,
so I know when I first came on a path, man, all my friends and family, everybody was, and
yeah.
so you're faced with a loneliness. You're faced with having to become accepting of that, but in that loneliness, you find that you belong to something that is much larger than anything that you've ever perceived before.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's not made up.
No.
It's not a fantasy and illusion, man. It's a real thing that is happening, that you now have a knowing of, that is pulled you and integrated you into its embrace.
Hmm. And that
And once
trans
it embraces you, it's like you're like,
yeah,
man, man, this is good.
yeah, falling back into the arms of the mother, if you will.
Yeah,
And
it
there's that.
literally.
So this phrase sprung to my mind, and it's no longer terrifying to be alone with yourself. And then
Right.
I thought, but if you're with yourself, then you're not alone. So how many you can't be alone and be with somebody, even if it's yourself. So there's so this
Yeah, well,
but this
everything's a dichotomy on this
right.
planet.
I know. Damn that creator.
Everything's got two sides, man.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
I
no,
see
I'm
that.
I'm alone with myself. Well, who is that? Well, that's yeah, that guy.
He's here.
Yeah. That also gives me the experience of being able to observe myself, like you can stand back and get in the balcony and watch yourself go. Yeah. Interacting with the world, and you're going, God, look at that idiot.
You know, I, I'll repeat that story I was telling. I think I told you last week when we were at Sundance one time, and Swifter started talking to the group, and he was using me as an example for something. I can't remember what it was, but he wasn't calling me Stronghorse. He was calling me Thunderhorse, and he'd say
Yeah.
Thunderhorse this, Thunderhorse that, and I was like, why is he calling me Thunderhorse? And after he was done talking, I walked up to him. I said, Swifter, why are you calling me Thunderhorse? He says, I called you Thunderhorse? I says, yeah. He said, I don't know. He said, maybe that's how you're known on the council or something. I was like, okay.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
several weeks later, I'm at the powwow in Austin. And I'm walking around the booths and then looking at the arts and crafts and stuff. And there's this gorgeous staff with a horse head on it. And this woman's asking the guy that made it, she said, how much is this? I mean, no, what is this? And he said, well, it's a Thunder Horse staff. And she said, how much is it? And he said, 200. And she went, okay, thank you. And she walked away. And I walked up and I walked up. The guy said, that's a Thunder Horse staff? He says, yeah. I said, what's a Thunder Horse? He says, you don't know? I said, no. He says, that's a horse that can never be broke. And I went, sold. That's that's mine, dude. And man, I whipped out that $200. and
And he was a
and it
happy
just
guy.
yeah. And I mean, they were so perfect for describing, like you're saying, that guy that's with me,
Uh-huh.
that's that guy that's kind of with me all the time,
Yeah.
and it's just and he's just there and that's what he does, and I'm not trying to not do it or whatever. It just that's just part of my makeup and part of my sense of self,
Hmm.
and um, for a lot of people that it's intimidating and they don't like it about me, but it's part of that I've accepted of myself as being, and once you accept that, you don't have to prove it.
Yeah. Well, that is also happens to be another real good stopping point. We have this a kind of a gift, you and I, of getting about to 31 minutes and finishing a story, which is
Yeah,
which is real nice.
because we have knowing. We know what time it is.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
All
we're
right.
gonna, yes, thank you. We're gonna continue this discussion next week, or in the next episode. Thank you, everybody. I am just
Thank
honored
you.
and thrilled to be part of this process, and I'm honored to be getting to know you all too. So I love you all. Thank you very much, and